Hello, everybody. It's Shakespeare Day. Thanks to everybody who showed up on Saturday for the Ghost of the Robot mini concert. I had a lot of fun doing that, and I hope you guys did too. Um, let's jump back in it. So when we last left it, everyone's found out that the king's been murdered. Uh, Everyone's freaked out. The king's two sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, have fled to England because they think that someone's about to stab them too. Um, Everyone's freaked out. Basically, everyone's pointing fingers at each other, and it's kind of chaos. And we pick it up on the roadside outside Macbeth's castle, Inverness, and there's an old man talking to Ross, who is a thane, who again is like a duke, not a king, like a little tiny king. There's a lot of thanes in Scotland, but only one king. Uh, and they're just talking about how weird it is outside. The old man is saying, I've lived a long time. I have never seen uh, it's so weird as it is right now. And Ross says, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's daytime, but it looks like nighttime. I mean, like Ross doesn't say it's a gloomy day. He says there's no light. It's like nighttime now, but we know it's day. Uh, the only thing I can think of that would do that is like a volcanic eruption. I don't think it's a volcanic eruption in England, obviously, but that's weird. The old man is like, "Yep, I get you. It's unnatural. This nighttime stuff going on. I saw a an owl hunt down and kill a falcon. I've never seen that." Ross is like, "Yeah, I hear you. I saw the king's horses go insane and eat each other." Now that, just the image of that keeps me up at night. And if there was ever a movie that I would make of Macbeth, I would want to show that. That's wow. So it is weird, and again, it's just harkening back to this idea that gunpowder used in the actual gunpowder plot, the real one in Shakespeare's time, was thought of as a kind of supernatural thing that might rip open the fabric of reality. And if you make too big of an explosion, it might just tear reality apart. Uh, and so Shakespeare is basically saying, the king has been murdered in a foul way, and reality has been torn apart, and we just don't know what's going to happen. Animals are going insane, doing things that they normally wouldn't do. Enter Macduff again, big old strapping, trustworthy Macduff, uh, and he is saying um, things are screwed up. Everything's screwed up. Um, let's see. Ross asks, "Do we know who killed the king? Is there any word on that?" And Macduff says, "Yeah, we think it's Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's sons. We think they did it because they fled. So that usually when you flee, you're guilty. So they have fled to England and Ireland, and we're pretty sure that they're behind this murder." Um, Ross then asks him, "Where's Macbeth?" He says, "Well, it looks like the next king's going to be Macbeth. Where is him? Where is he?" And Macduff says, "He's already gone to Scone to be invested." So Scone is the castle that you would go to have the ceremony that would make you king. And Ross says he's going there to be part of the ceremony. Macduff says, "I'm going home. I'm going to Fife." And Castle Fife is Macduff's castle. And they say goodbye. Uh, then we get to Act 3. And we're now in Forres, which is Duncan's old castle. It's the king's castle, and it's now Macbeth's castle, and Macbeth is now king. And we meet Banquo alone in the throne room, awaiting. He's been called to talk to Macbeth, the new king, and he's alone in the room thinking to himself. And he is just basically thinking, "Thou hast it now, King Cawdor, glams and all, as the weird women promised. And I fear thou playedst most foully for it. Yet it was said it should not stand in thy prosperity, but that myself should be the root and father of many kings. If there come truth from them, as upon thee, Macbeth, their speeches shine, why, the verity of thee made good, may they not be my own oracles as well, and set me up in hope? But hush, no more." I've never played Banquo, so that sucked. But basically he's saying, I think Macbeth killed Duncan. I'm pretty sure he did. And that's not right. That's really bad. And this is just these witches said this exact thing would happen. That Macbeth would first get the Thane of Cawdorship, then he did, then he would become king, and he has, but he's reminding himself, but the witches said, my children will be kings, his children won't, and I won't be a king, but my children will, and my grandchildren. So he's kind of hopeful, actually, in that. And so they come in, and Macbeth is just asking, so how you doing? I heard you were planning to ride out tonight. When exactly is that happening? And Banquo is kind of nervous about that. Macbeth wants to know if his son Fleance is riding out with him. Banquo says yes. Now, the most dangerous time that you could be murdered is when you're riding from place to place, from castle to castle. So Banquo is going to be vulnerable when he rides out. And Macbeth is asking him exactly when that's going to happen. So there's tension between these two people. But Banquo can't, he's got to answer his king, honestly, so he does. And leaves. Then Macbeth sends everyone else away, except one servant, and he asks, are those men that I wanted to talk to here? And the servant says yes. Macbeth says, go get them. And the servant leaves. And Macbeth says, and this is a soliloquy again, directly to the audience, he says, he points to his new robes and says, to be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus. Our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. 'Tis much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath the wisdom that doth guide his valor to act in safety. There is none but he whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked, as it is said Mark Antony's was by Caesar. He chid the sisters when first they put the name of king upon me, and bade them speak to him. Then, prophet-like, they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown, and put a barren scepter in my grip, thence to be wrenched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. If it be so, for Banquo's issue have I defiled my mind. For them, the gracious Duncan, have I murdered, put rancors in the vessel of my peace, only for them, and mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man, to make them kings, the seed of Banquo kings. Rather than so, come fate into the list, and champion me to the utterance. Who's there? Okay, so he's just basically saying, Banquo is a badass, first of all. He's also smart. He also knows what the weird sister said. So he may know that I killed Duncan. And also, the sisters, the weird sisters, the witches, they told him that his kids would be king. So that means that I have ruined my soul just so that his children and grandchildren could be kings. Screw that. Instead of that, I'm going to take the next step, man. And we see how once committed to the wrong path, Macbeth is faced with, do I keep the gains that I got by doing the wrong thing, by murdering Duncan? And if in order to keep what I got by doing that, I'm going to have to keep doing horrible things. And I'm going to have to keep marching in this black path. And you see him thinking about it and deciding to do that. Again, I think this whole play is just it's a morality play. So it's a warning about once you start walking in the wrong direction, you keep going, you get really far from the good path. So in walk these scary looking dudes, these three dudes, and Shakespeare calls them the murderers. Just so there's no confusion about who they are. And Macbeth says, well then, now have you considered my speeches? Know you that it was he in the times past which held you so under fortune, which you thought had been our innocent self? This I made good to you in our last conference, passed in probation with you, how you were born in hand, how crossed the instruments who wrought them, and all things else to half a soul and to a notion crazed to say, thus did Banquo. Murderer says, you made it known to us. I did so, says Macbeth, and went further, which is now the point of our second meeting. Do you find your patience so predominant in your nature that you can let this go? Are you so gospel to pray for this good man and for his issue, whose heavy hand hath bowed you to the grave and beggared yours forever? The murderer says, we are men, my liege. Macbeth says, aye, in the catalogue ye go for men, as hounds and greyhounds, mongrels, spaniels, curs, sloughs, water rugs, and demi-wolves are all clept all by the name of dogs. The valued file distinguishes the swift, the slow, the subtle, the housekeeper, the hunter, every one according to the gift which bounteous nature hath in him closed, whereby he does receive particular addition from the bill that writes them all alike, and so of men. Now, if you have a station in the file, not in the worst rank of manhood, say it, and I will put that business in your bosoms, whose execution takes your enemy off, grapples you to the heart and love of us, who wear our health but sickly in his life, which in his death were perfect. Okay, so he's basically saying, in our last meeting, I let you know that I was never screwing you guys. It was Banquo that was screwing you. And they're like, yeah, you told us that. We believe you. And he's like, okay, so now what are you going to do about it? You just going to take it? You going to do anything about it? Do you want to do anything about it? Because I want you to do something about it. If you do something about the guy that screwed you, I will reward you. And they say, yes, we will. So he's unleashing the dogs on Banquo. And marching to hell. And we will pick it up again. This one is, I think that I probably should do one scene a week because I've done two and we're at 14 minutes. So that's just too long. So I gobble up Shakespeare. I like to eat it. But thank you if you've actually made it to the end of this video. Until next time, guys.